Here we are in App Designer looking at the final example that we did in the chart course. I've made a copy of it, and remember you can do that when you go to the Open App option, and there's a copy option there. And I just want to recap on some of the data sources because we will be looking at the output from the tracer on those. So of the data sources, just edit the SQL statement. Okay, not to worry about what the actual select statement is about, but what I wanted to show you is that the variables here, percent key percent in this point, are in the App Designer data source, and as App Designer runs, it will substitute, in this case, the key customer number in here, and that's what we should be seeing in the tracer. At the same time, if we have a look at the business object here, and we have a look at our XML in, we've again got percent key percent in the XML in, and we would expect that the customer number will be substituted in there. So we will see those a little bit later on. Okay, so I'm just going to close this now and go back and run this app and start to have a look at how Tracer works. Well, the first thing to do will be to launch the Tracer. So we go to the Administration tab, we go to Application Designer, and down here we've got Start Tracer. So let's fire that up. And here we are. It's now loaded, and it's sitting here listening, waiting for an app to either raise an event or be told to output any output to its list view here. So let's have a quick look at some of the buttons. First of all, you see here that we can pause it. So if we press pause, basically the listener stops listening. Doesn't matter what happens, nothing will appear on here. We can restart it again and it starts to listen. If we have got quite a lot of rows in our list view, we can press clear and it will just wipe it all out. You start again. Minimize will do just that. It minimizes the tracer to this, but notice also though it also stops it from listening. So the reason for this is that we think that if somebody's minimized it, they're clearly not interested in the output going on. But if you just simply restart it and it will be listening minimized. Restoring it, as you restore it goes to its original size and it would restart it as well. So just be a bit careful on that. Minimize we've just seen, restore we've just seen as it puts it back. We can print the contents of the list view. You can export the list view to an Excel spreadsheet. And these are quite useful for support people. If you are running the tracer on a customer site, it's really quite useful to say, run the tracer, run the app, send us the output, and we can have a quick look at what we're seeing. So they're the basic options within the tracer. Notice, obviously, it's a standard list view, so we can move our columns around. But if some of the columns, I've got more columns than you, remember that if you right-click on here and you've got Field Chooser, you may find that some of the columns are in the Field Chooser. So I personally like to put all the columns out here because they're all relevant. So there we go. So now, once we've done that, let's have a look at what happens when we start to run an app. For this bit then, I'm going to go to run a program. This is my copied app that we saw earlier on in the recap session. So I'll just put run it. Okay, those of you who've done the chart course will recognize it instantly. Basically, we're simply asking for a customer number out of a customer combo on this toolbar. It's going to run those data sources automatically and populate the list view, the charts. So here we go. Okay, so we've got some, our app has worked. It's basically taken the customer number, executed the data sources and populated the charts, and we can see activity on the toolbar, on the tracer rather. So first of all, the on initialization event is fired. Those of you who remember the VB script, it's fired, but in fact, I didn't do any code in there at all. Then we've had an event, a toolbar event on that toolbar. The value that came from the toolbar was that. The event ID 38,000. Those of you who have been through all the courses will recognize that as the event ID for the customer combo, and whatever object that fired the event had a caption of customer. So if we have a look at our application here, we can quite clearly see there's our caption customer, there's our customer number, and we know that it's a combo box from there. Notice, however, though, already, despite the fact that the customer number is only 7 characters long here, it's already filled it out, ready for use, possibly in a SQL statement. Now, in this application, what we did was, when this event occurs, this is the customer combo changes, it automatically fires these data sources up and populates the chart. So let's have a look at these items here. If we hover over the data source, we can see the actual select statement sent to the SQL database. And note that the customer number now has been, or the %key% has been replaced by the value that's come from the customer combo. Now, what we can do here also is we can click on this, and it will copy that SQL statement to the clipboard. So if you just bear with me a minute, I will just drag this over here. This is as SQL Manager here, and I'm just simply going to paste that statement back in, and if we run it, you can see it doing the query. So straight away from the tracer, you can just copy and paste, bang it in, and if you've got the SQL query wrong, straight away you'll see what the problem is. So let's move that out of the way for the time being. We've got the same thing with the sales history here. This is the business object data source, and we can see the XML in here. So if we click on this, it will copy it to the clipboard. And in a similar manner, I'm just going to drag this over here. If we go to the Syspro E.NET Diagnostics tool, and I've already logged in, and I'm running the ARSQRY business object, which is what we were running in our app. Let's get rid of the template that it actually brought in automatically. And in this case, what we'll do is we will paste in the XML that we actually got. Now, it needs prettifying, definitely, but we just simply get rid of these 2 lines here. And then if we run the query, we get the answer. So we can actually just simply copy and paste straight from those tooltips straight into applications, which will help us diagnose whether we've got the right things working or not, which is really neat. Okay. What we're going to do now is actually click on the bar here, and if you remember from the last time, that will pop up a list view, and we should see activity in the tracer. But before I do that, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that on the user event here, see, we've got parameter 1 and parameter 2. Remember that in your VB script, you've got up to 3 parameters coming into the user event. Really useful to be able to see what's actually arriving in your VB script. We'll be having a look at those a little bit later on, but just bear in mind that there's P1, P2, and indeed P3 there, should they need it. So let's have a look at this drill down. Okay, here we are with our drill down. Now we can actually see a number of things happening on our tracer. Now we can see that we have a chart clicked event. There's the event ID. There's the label, which is the March one, which I clicked on. So have a quick look at some of these. Just going to close this for the time being so we can see what's going on. And you can see dialog box closed and another event going on here. If we click on here again and repopulate, you'll see what's going on. And we can see that the data source, exactly the same as before, that was actually populating the list view. If any of these data sources had failed, you'd get a failed message here, and then the error message would also appear in a tooltip. Good. So the other thing that I wanted to do on here is show you how the tracer is actually keeping track of the callouts that are going on here. And I've added a couple of buttons to the sample. If we do this, show list view content, it's nipped down the list view, bobbed the message box in my VB script, and okay. But what I wanted to show you here is that in fact it's actually keeping a track of the list view. You can see that probably in my VB script I've worked out how many rows there are, and now I've nipped down each row doing a get row. Now, as I've come out of that section of the VB script, the tracer said, well, hang on a minute, you've just executed list view get row 4 times, which is actually fairly slow. It's pretty quick in the core Syspro UI, but in Avanti that would be actually quite slow. So he's just warning you that you might want to consider using get all the records for the list view and so on. And we will find this in a lot of the callouts. It is monitoring your usage and trying to suggest better ways of you using those callouts, which I think is really neat. And in the same way, we'll see if we add some rows here. I'm just adding the same row 4 or 5 times. And if we come down here, we will see that the same sort of thing happening. It's just warning us that we've just executed the same call out 5 times. And in this instance, drawing my attention to the fact that maybe I ought to have created one single XML string with the 5 records in and just called this once. So this is an example of actually the tracer warning you or advising you on best practice. Now, the other thing I wanted to draw your attention to, I'm just going to close this, is the on-user event here. It's clearly showing us that the event has occurred, and if we hover over it, it's actually telling us we can actually edit the script. So what we could do in here, for instance, is if we click on it, it takes us into an editor, and believe it or not, you can make either temporary or permanent changes to your application from within this tracer. So let's just add something in here. What I'm going to do here is just when the toolbar or the customer combo changes, we're going to add a little message here. So up here, we can see insert tracer message. You can see any bit of VB script in here, but here's an example of us writing to the tracer. And maybe in the message, we might say, hello, I don't know, customer combo pressed or something like that. So let's apply that. And it's actually updated the running VB script now. So we close that. Okay, we'll go back to our little app. And if we change the customer, we'll come on here and scroll down, you can see now that all this will be very, very similar to what we saw before, but here is our little message coming out here. Now we can either go back in here and edit it, and if we press save, it will make a permanent change to our text file, and apply just simply makes the temporary change to our script. So that's looking pretty good at the moment. What I'd like to do now is show you the tracer running in the app designer itself as we're editing an app. So first things first, what we're going to do, shut this down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the log, so there's absolutely nothing in this tracer. And then I'm going to load app designer. We'll pick up our tracer course here. And I'm just going to go straight to run now, and therefore we're going to run the app. Now, what you've got to remember is that this is going to run up another instance of Syspro and start running our app in that instance. Now, from a running app, what we can do is we go to the cogs icon here. We can, at the bottom here, do Start Tracer. And there we go. It's exactly the same size as we had in the other instance. And if we have a look at our app, we can see that the tracer is working as we would expect. If we come back here, oops, need the app. And if we click on our items here and we do our bits and pieces, and we add some rows and things like that, we can see in our tracer that we've got very, very similar output to before. So you can see our parameters and our queries and so on like that. What I wanted to show you though, and of course, don't forget that in this mode, I suspect that it's far more useful being able to edit the VB script, both permanently and temporary, as you are running and diagnosing in a development environment, as opposed to trying to be a support desk, which is diagnosing a completed running app. And I certainly find nipping in and being able to type in a VB script extremely useful. But what I wanted to show you here, done it again, is that if we close this running app and therefore we would go back to Imp IDE, we are actually closing that Syspro instance, and therefore the tracer has disappeared. And if we close our app designer here, we'll find that we've got our tracer still running in the main Syspro instance, but notice there's nothing in it. And that's because nothing has happened in this instance for it to do, and it's just sitting there listening. So I just wanted to clarify this idea that of the tracer running in the relevant instance, which is actually quite important. So I'm going to just minimize that, get rid of it. And that's really the end of our course. There will be inevitably more and more features added to the tracer, more and more guidance, and particularly the analysis of the call out functions. And as people start to use it and ask us, can you add this, can you add that, this course, I suspect, will rapidly come out of date. But the majority of this is self-explanatory. It's just understanding the use of it. So what we'll do now is just do a quick wrap up, and that'll be the end of it. I wanted to just do a quick recap on what we've been through before we finish the course. Basically, I've shown you two ways of running the tracer. The first from the Syspro main menu, which would typically be the way support people might run the tracer on a deployed app, or any developer onto a deployed app, where you're actually running it possibly from a menu or indeed the run command, as you saw me doing that. The second from within App Designer, which would typically be the way that maybe a developer would do, and certainly the way I tend to run it, and in which case I can develop it, run it, have a look at what's going on. In particular, I found it very, very useful to be able to see the actual SQL commands that are actually executed against the database, and the actual XML in being executed by the business objects with all the variables with values put into them. I've also found it very useful to be able to modify the VB script at runtime, and I have started to use the write to tracer call out more frequently. I tend to now write a little function which will write this out and or put out a message box or a task dialog, dependent on what I'm doing. So all in all, I'm pretty impressed with the tracer. It's helped me greatly as I've developed some of these courses. So if you have any ideas of improving the tracer, or on both on its content and usability, please feel free to contact us. My email address is on the first slide of the course, and good luck, and I hope that it's been worthwhile running through this short course. Take care. Bye.